Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
And today's episode is brought to you by the Martin 00012E Koa. With the 00012E Koa in Martin's lineup, now more players can turn their dreams of owning a Koa guitar into reality. The back and sides of this gorgeous model are constructed with Koa fine veneer, which is an environmentally conscious, alternative wood option made by bonding Koa hardwood to an African mahogany core. For more information on the 00012E Koa, please visit maurysmusic.com today. What's going on, Spoon?
Well, hey, Maury, it's good to be back having another podcast. It's interesting you brought up this particular model that's sponsoring this episode. I was actually just thinking about that model the other day when somebody wrote me at my own website, One Man's Guitar, about Martin necks. And I think one of the most comfortable necks for my hand that Martin's ever put out is the short scale performance artist profile that's now only available on guitars that are made at the Navajo factory in Mexico. And this is a very comfortable triple-O, gorgeous Koa because they're using a fine veneer, which is something that goes all the way back to the very first Martins that were made, even over when he was making guitars in Germany in the Viennese style before he came over to the United States. He used fine veneers on the outside of many of his guitars, so you have really beautiful wood on the outside. And the inside, you call it African mahogany, it's Kaya. That's one name of the species. It's got a bunch of different names, but it is the wood that was originally called African mahogany. And it's got a density that's closer. It's not as dense as South American mahogany, but it gives you a solid wood core that gives you the strength and the flexibility, and then you get that beautiful Koa veneer. So a very cool, amazingly affordable, good-looking Martin guitar. So thank you for reminding me to bring that up.
Speaking of good-looking, it's my turn to talk again.
Be my guest.
I have a good idea for a podcast. Would you like to hear about it for the first time right now?
Certainly.
Why don't we take today to talk about, well, you know what, before I even get that far, and it's not because I haven't thought of it yet, we have to be very careful. We often forget to include our new favorite segment, 10 Reasons to Buy a Blueridge Guitar, and I think you owe us an installment. I can't remember if we did it last week, but I do remember that we don't always remember. Should we just do that first?
Yes, but to be fair, it's not always that we don't remember. Sometimes we get talking, we get caught up in our topics, and we literally run out of time. So it's kind of like the guest on the old Merv Griffin show, who we don't have time for Toady Fields today, but she promised she'll be back next week, or tomorrow. But yes. So yes, let's go ahead with that, because we're almost finished with the list. We're more than halfway through. I believe this is, in fact, the number 4 reason on Spoon's list to own a Blueridge guitar. The number 4 reason is gorgeous tone woods. Blueridge guitars are made with really beautiful tone woods. Whether you're going up at the top of their line with the Adirondack spruce tops and the forward-shifted scallop bracing and their version of a vintage V-neck, or you're going down into the more affordable models, you get really beautiful rosewood and really pretty mahogany. You get some really nice figuring in the mahogany. You get that wonderful copper sheen that I look for in mahogany, sometimes with the straight banding, sometimes with more burl and more interesting, gorgeous-looking mahogany figuring. And basically, it's those traditional woods that most people want. And the Sitka spruce tops are always really nice in terms of the cosmetic look of them, with great cross-silking. And so whether you have a rosewood family fingerboard and and bridge or mahogany, ebony. So, traditional woods that go back, even though they're not made in America, that go back to the American guitar tradition that was basically invented by C.F. Martin. At the same time, Orville Gibson was developing his version of the American guitar after a while, and the Blueridge models are inspired by both of those builders. But the models, of course, that I like the most are the ones that are more like the Martin guitars, but again with those traditional tone woods that make Blueridge an incredible value for getting a guitar made by human beings in a factory that's been making guitars for a very long time using high-quality woods in the traditional dovetail neck joint, scallop bracing, forward scallop bracing on most of the models. And that's my number 4 reason for owning a Blueridge guitar.
Most excellent. And if you're wondering again, why is this program called Martins and More, there's the more. It's not all Martin. So let's get into today's topic. I'm going to call this episode Hidden Gems, Martin Guitars Under $1,000. And by that I mean, we sell a lot of Martin guitars. We have a lot of guitars on the website. We get a lot of activity and a lot of interest in the entire Martin lineup, from the least expensive to the most expensive to the completely mainstream to the guitar that you never see anymore. But among our daily and weekly and monthly sales activity here, there are these guitars I would call hidden gems, guitars you might not have thought of, maybe guitars you may have possibly overlooked. Can you kind of get into the vibe I'm looking for there, Spoon?
Well, absolutely. I'm very curious to hear what they are. There's certain Martin models that I like, that I always consider my own hidden gems, but they typically are over $1,000, and they're not hidden gems. They're just sort of the road less traveled by. But you're talking about, you want to focus on the more affordable ones, because you had mentioned to me right before we started the podcast that you want to deal with guitars that are under $1,000, and that really got my mind going of, wow, what would I include on that list? So do you already have a list made up that you want to go through?
I do. It's not in any particular order, and I'd like to start with maybe some smaller guitars, but the whole spirit of today's episode would be guitars under $1,000 that you may have come to Maury's Music and missed. And by that, I just mean you got us on the phone, you got us in an email, and you're looking for certain guitars, but you may have missed something like, for example, the 000C Junior 10E.
Wait a second, did you say the Junior? So you're talking about the 000C Junior 10E. Actually, right. This would definitely be on my list of hidden gems. When I played this at the factory, when they came out, because of course I don't get to see all the prototypes, and Ramin, doesn't, it's not like I get to meet with him all that often. So I do not, I don't often get to see those. So I didn't get to see that until it came out. And when I went to do the, my one man's guitar videos that I do for my website. And I was really pleased with this instrument. So the Junior series, people are familiar with the Dreadnought Junior, which is still has that sort of, what I call the square shoulder Martin Dreadnought shape, but in a smaller guitar with a extra short scale neck. And this is made in that, what they call the more feminine shape that you see in Martin triple O's, OMs, double O's, and O's. But again, smaller guitar. But this one has a cutaway, and of course, on-board pickup, an on-board pickup that's plug and play. And I immediately thought that the people who had really embraced the sort of ukulele culture, and the Ed Sheeran fans and people like that started to gravitate toward extra small guitars that would feel more like a big ukulele, really. That's how I equate them, because I play much bigger guitars. But super comfortable, easy to play, cutaway, and what I think would make a great addition to anybody's arsenal that wants something super portable, but that still sounds and feels like a real guitar. So what's your take on the OOC Junior 10E?
I think it's really interesting. Martin, got some popularity going really quickly with the D Junior 10, and when they came out with a triple O version, my first thought would be, well, the D Junior was meant to give people the dreadnought sound and the dreadnought shape, just shrunk down. Why would they need a triple OC when they already have triple O's and double O's and O's? And I'm not really sure where the science comes from and what Martin tried to do. If we admit that they took the dreadnought and shrunk it down to make the D Junior, I don't necessarily think anybody at Martin thought they need to take a triple O and shrink it down for, any credible reason that I know of. But what it did was it basically took the popularity of the D Junior and gave people one more body size, one more shape to go ahead and have a choice. And it's like that old thing I just read the other day on somewhere online. If you see a soda machine and it's a Coke machine in the hallway, you ask yourself, am I thirsty or not? If you see a Coke machine next to a Pepsi machine, you ask yourself, which one do I want? You don't even give any thought to, I'm not thirsty anymore. I know I'm thirsty. Now I want to decide which two to get. Maybe it was just something else for Martin to give you a choice in the junior lineup. And if you weren't entirely sure you needed a D Junior, maybe the marketing geniuses there at Martin figure, well, if we give you the D Junior and the triple OC Junior to choose between, you'll skip that first step about, do I need it? You'll decide which one's which. So I think it's just another a way to give people the choice. It's sometimes Martin is very good about, if they introduce a model, they'll give it to you with both rosewood or mahogany. Sometimes they'll give you the choice, Sitka top or Spaley top. I really think the addition of the triple OC Junior is just those people that do like the D Junior. Now you have something to choose between. And I don't see it as popular as the Dreadnought Junior as far as our sales, but I think it's nice to be able to go after those people that just aren't Dreadnought people.
Well, I think that I'm glad you just said that. You ended that exactly correctly, because you had mentioned that Dreadnought sound. Of course, the D Junior, the Dreadnought Junior, isn't going to give you as big a voice or as much bass response as you get from a full-size whopping Dreadnought, but it's much more comfortable, but it still gives you the look and the vibe. And when you compare this to this triple O, you do get more bass response out of the D. But when you plug in the triple O, you can always use EQ to maximize the bass response. What you do get is you can hear the bass string. It's good for finger picking, and it's certainly good enough for strumming. But I think there's some people that simply like the look of those kind of guitars, and people who want the cutaway, and either because they like the look of the cutaway or they actually use the cutaway as often as I use a cutaway. And of course, extra short scale, you got to play very precisely up there, to be honest, if you have big fingers particularly. But I think it definitely has its place. And I think people who get a chance to play one of these, especially if you get to plug them in, will be pleased. There are other brands out there, the Baby Taylors and stuff like that there are other small guitars like this that people do. They're not just a novelty item. And you do see them. I see them in the open mics and on stage and stuff in New York City all the time. And those kind of smaller guitars. And like I say, I think it really comes from that sort of Ed Sheeran idea of having that small guitar that still puts out a lot of sound. So, and, easy to play. So, an interesting choice to kick off this list of the hidden gems under $1,000, as you call it.
Ed Sheeran, never heard of him.
Surely you're joking.
The number 2 Martin guitar hidden gem under $1,000 at Maury's Music. Boy, that rolls off the tongue. The Triple O10E. We're going to keep it 10. And of course, I'm going to remind you, this list has no order, and it might not even get to 10. But the Triple O10E is another guitar you may have missed if you came to Maury's Music and got a little bit lost in all the available Martin guitars. I would definitely include the Triple O10E in today's topic. How familiar are you with that?
I'm not that familiar with them. I've known them, I've seen them, and I've played them. It's interesting. So for those that are not that familiar with the Martin nomenclature, the traditional Martins, the number referred to the cosmetic style, and that also typically includes the tone woods. So the ones you're most familiar with, style 18, like the D18, traditionally mahogany back and sides, spruce top. The style 21 and style 28 have rosewood back and sides, and you could sort of see cosmetically that a 21 is basically a 18 with a rosewood back and sides. 28 has different colored binding, and that's when you start getting up into the rosewood trim and things like that. Style 35 typically comes with, and style 36 come with a 3-piece back, rosewood, and so forth. And when you get up into anything that begins with a 4, it's all, you get that pearl inlay stuff going on. You go in the other direction, then the 17s have their own styling and their own vibe. The 16s have their own styling and their own vibe. The 15s are mahogany family tops, backs, and sides, and that's what you get from Nazareth. When you get down to Navajo guitars, it's a little different. So with style 12 and 13, which are the upper level Road Series guitars that have more trim, you have choices in the backs and sides and the top woods. That is a modern Martin thing. And when you get down into 10, you're getting into what I consider the introductory Martin guitars that are made out of wood and that give you a lot of resonant tone, because you're talking about solid wood tops, and you're getting into, what you can say are professional level acoustic guitars. So this is a simply appointed a guitar that is mainly about the construction and the wood and the comfort with the short scale and the very comfortable neck profile. And so you're more familiar than I am with the 10. What is today's 10E, 0010E, in terms of what does it come with when you look at it, and what are the woods that are being used?
Well, the 0010E's got a sapele, back, sides, and top. And it really, it competes pretty well with the 0015M from a previous podcast we did very recently. But it's one of those guitars that gives you some options that you really don't see. Some people would say, I want to buy a Martin guitar, but I don't want to be stuck in the Road Series or the 16 Series. I want to go really far up past standard. Really, between the 15s and the Road Series, you don't have all that many options to get a sapele top. But that's the 0010E is basically an all sapele guitar, and that's kind of its claim to fame.
And one of the things about it, and besides looking very cool, so people like that look of that dark, wooden guitar, that often makes me think of Brazil nuts, that kind of, rich brown color that you get from the mahogany family. You get a different sound. So the nice thing about a sapele compared to other mahoganies, the other mahogany tops, they can be warm, and I call them very pretty. They're very pretty sound, but you don't get a lot of chime out of them, and you get more chime out of sapele, I think, than you get out of Sipo, which is another African mahogany, or the traditional South American mahogany. And so I think they sound really good, brand new, and they look cool, and they have a unique sound that people will either say, you'll know right away whether you're a spruce top only person when you hear a guitar with a mahogany family top. But I would definitely say you should listen to a sapele top, because I think they sound a little more, I don't know if you want to call it sparkle, or a brighter sound to them, or crisper, or they sound, I think they might appeal to a spruce-centric ear more than a 15 series guitar even would do. So and price tag, it's hard to beat the price tag on a level 10 Road Series guitar.
I would agree, but I found a guitar that does beat that price tag. Would you let me gush about the next guitar on our list of Martin guitar hidden gems under $1,000 at Maury's Music? The OMC X1E, back in black.
Wow. Well, that's a very good hidden gem. I have a couple of friends that have to have a black guitar. That's their thing. They're both electric guitarists primarily, and so I think they see their black guitars as a stage, guitars, acoustic guitars. They need acoustic guitars sometimes when they're recording in their home studios and stuff, but they want a black guitar. Either they like that vibe and that it's inspiring to them, or they want to have it on stage when even if it's sitting on the stand mainly, and they pick it up for the times they need an acoustic guitar, but they need something with a plug and play electronics that can go through a big rig, cutaway, and this guitar certainly accomplishes that. So that's I'd say not one of those, you talk about hidden gems, not one of those guitars that, is on my radar typically. So that's pretty cool. What's your take on this orchestra model?
This is a sneaky model for us, because part of the reason we're taking a look at this list is we're looking at guitars that we either haven't sold in a while because we ordered too many of them, or at one time they were really good sellers and then they dropped off a little bit and their popularity comes and goes. This is kind of there's an inconsistent popularity with this model with us. We could sell 5 or 6 of these guitars in a couple of months, so then we'll order 10, and then we'll sell 12, so we'll order 20, and then we'll sell 1, and we'll be like, why did we buy so many OMC X1E blacks? And then it's hard to really chase trends and figure out why something's popular when it is, and then why it wanes. But the OMC X1E, at any time on a calendar year, we could put it on our bestseller list or our worst seller list. And I wouldn't be surprised if while we're making the list kind of flops. So the OMC X1E black, like you said, it totally hits a sweet spot. If you're going to look for a Martin guitar that's got plug and play electronics under $1,000 and you need a cutaway right away, this is one of the guitars you should look at. But like you said, if you want a black guitar, there might be one more black guitar on this list. I'll have to really make you guys wait and listen to the whole thing, because I don't want to give away.
I think I know what that is, because they don't have many black guitars these days. But I also want to point out something about this compared to the other guitars we just talked about. That not only has a cutaway, it's a long scale orchestra model, and so you want to remember that, because that can make a difference. Now, a lot of the models that are made, the more affordable models, are long scale, even though they say triple O, but not all of them. So you always want to check that, especially if you expect to be up above the 12th fret, because the room you get for the long scale fret distribution when you get up there compared to short scale can make a big difference. Again, it depends on your hand size, but I have to play short scale guitars these days because of my old football injuries and all that. So I used to always be an OM man because I wanted that extra real estate up there. So I have to play much more precisely, kind of tiptoeing through the minefield of trying to avoid traffic jams up there. And this guitar gives you that. So I guess I would have to say, if you're a Fender man, when it comes to you electric guitarists, they're looking for, like my other friends who want to plug and play acoustic, they want to spend a lot of money on it, but it needs to sound good through their rig. This would be a good option if you're a Fender player and if you're used to long scale necks. If you're a Gibson player, you may want to look at a short scale guitar. But I think that's an important thing to say. I'd like to interject here as we get going. I have a special trivia question. That's another thing we sometimes forget to do in these podcasts. So would you like to hear my special trivia question?
I would love to.
Okay, well, my special trivia question is to see if our listeners can figure out during the course of this broadcast what time of day was this podcast recorded. And you may get a clue coming up.
It's going to be like one of those Sherlock Holmes cartoons, isn't it?
I'm not sure if you're referring to like Underdog or Bugs Bunny dressed up as Sherlock Holmes, or is this some highbrow cartoon you used to watch?
Well, if you're into season 3 with me on this and you still think there might be highbrow anything, you haven't been paying attention.
So, what do you think's coming up on your list?
I don't want to brag, but I'm really good friends with the guy that buys the wood at Martin Guitar. So not only am I a fan of this next guitar, I can pronounce it. It's the GPC X2E Macassar.
I beg your pardon. That must be the GPC2E Macassar.
Damn it.
Actually, we're both right. I used to call it Macassar, and I don't remember why I did that. I'm sure I probably saw some naturalist somewhere on some television show with some sort of accent called it Macassar. And in fact, I thought they said Macassar because they didn't pronounce their R's, as certain people don't. But I do know that most people call it Macassar, and I believe Mike Dickinson at Martin calls it Macassar. So I would just be happy to say that you're sort of wrong. But in any case, if people don't know what we're talking about, Macassar ebony is a species of wood that is native to the Indonesian archipelago, but is found throughout South Asia. And I might even be in India that Martin may source when they do get it. They may source it in India. But this, of course, is the X series. So this is again, if you don't know the Martin nomenclature, GPC, Grand Performance with a cutaway. The Grand Performance body shape has the feminine waist, but it's wider and deeper than an OM, though they make some models at OM and O depth for electric. Often their acoustic electric models are. So I must be honest with you, I don't remember if this model has the full GPC depth or if it has the shallower OM depth. But it's wider than that. But so in other words, the sound chamber has a little more cubic space than an OM, and it has a different sound to it that I feel is a little fuller bottom end, not necessarily more bass response as more lower mid response. So E string, A string, and even D string, a little thicker sounding to my ear than an OM. Long scale guitar, but because it is in fact the what's the full model name again?
It's the GPC X2E.
X2E. So it's the 2-level acoustic electric from the X series. So this isn't actually Macassar ebony. It's an HPL guitar with this beautiful Macassar ebony imaging on it that they do with a fantastic digital printer. And it looks like, the most expensive Macassar ebony you can buy on the market. It's absolutely gorgeous to look at. So if you've never seen one, get on the website and check this out. So why don't you go down through the actual specs of this GPC.
Down the specs we go. The GPC X2E, I'll make you a deal. I'll tell you the specs, but remind me to give you a trivia question when I'm done saying them. The GPC X2E Macassar has the number 2 in it because the top is a solid wood top. In this case, it's solid sapele. So almost everywhere in the Martin lineup, when you see an X series with a 2 in it, you'll see a solid spruce top, but the 2 literally just means solid wood. And in this case, wood, didn't you know, it's not spruce, it's sapele. So we have a sapele top. Sorry about that. Scallop X bracing. You have the performing artist neck with a high performance taper, which is very, very popular these days. At least the high performance taper is, where you get the 1 11/16 inch feel on your right hand, but the left hand has a 1 3/4 inch nut. So it tapers from a wide feel to a narrow feel. And you still get things like the Fishman MX electronics. It's a long scale instrument, and it really, specs aside, it really gives you one of the very few ways to get into an alternative body size, frankly, under $1,000 or not, to get into a GP at any price point is pretty rare in the Martin lineup these days. But the GPC Grand Performance Cutaway here in the X series with the solid sapele top, it really makes for a sound that if we ever do those comparisons on our YouTube channel on Wednesday's virtual tour, or I'll take some time and sometimes literally just do a video comparing guitar A to guitar B. There aren't many guitars in the Martin lineup that sound anything like it. To have a grand performance with X Series being HPL and then adding a solid Sapele top, take away the gorgeous look of the back and sides. This guitar really is kind of a unicorn.
Well, absolutely, and again, it's a unique sound. Sapele tops sound different from spruce, but they also sound different from other mahogany families. So definitely worth checking out. I think they have a, like you often use the word sweet spot, unique sweet spot. Not only does it look really cool because the Sapele on these tops, if I haven't seen the one you had in stock for certain, but the ones I've seen have really good looking banding on it. So really attractive, goes well with that amazing Macassar ebony image on the back and sides, and has a unique sound. So people should really look this up and check out the demonstration video on Maury's website. And if he doesn't have an up-to-date one, he certainly will by the time this podcast is on the air.
Well, how about I do you one better? How about we take a break, we talk about 20 questions, and I'll promise to add a GPC X2E Macassar soundbite on this podcast.
Oh, that's very cool. Yes, that's a good idea. Now, you mentioned something about a trivia question?
I did. We're going to roll right into 20 questions, but before we do, we talked about the fact that the X2E, the 2 in the model name in an X series, means it's a solid wooden top versus a solid HPL top. That's not always the case. Can you name a Martin guitar that is an X series that has a solid wooden top that does not have the number 2 in it? That answer coming up after 20 questions.
So this is the game that we like to play just so we have an opportunity to rib each other. But in this version, this week, the smart guy, that's being Maury, is going to think up a Martin guitar that is available for sale out there in the world. And that's basically either still in production or still in the Martin catalog. And I, the wise guy, gets 20 questions to try to guess what model that might be. And I get up to 3 guesses as to what exact model that might be, but they count as part of those 20 questions.
Sounds right to me. 20 questions on the clock. Go.
Because now I'm have this down to a formula. Is this guitar made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania?
No.
Ooh, So for those who are new to this game, that means it's made in Navajo, Mexico. Is this guitar made in the dreadnought size?
No.
Does this guitar have a solid wood top?
Yes.
Is this guitar sold, is it made with a cutaway body?
Yes.
That is 4 questions. Non-dreadnought cutaway made in Navajo, Mexico. So question number 5, the big 05. Is this guitar made with the S body shape?
No.
If you're playing along at home, it's not one of the SC models. Curses. So that's the big, so we know it's a non-dreadnought made in Navajo with a solid top and a cutaway. It's not an S model. So now I've got to go into Maury mode and go through model sizes. Is this a guitar, a grand performance body size?
Yes, it is.
Is this guitar made in the Rhodes series?
No.
Is this model available in rosewood, mahogany, or Macassar ebony back and side imagery?
Maybe. Yes.
Maybe. This wouldn't happen to be the model we were just talking about, the GPC X2E.
Keep talking.
It's available for...
Oh, you got to name the whole thing.
Available for sale at Maury's Music with a Sapele top.
No.
Ah! Okay, well is that 8? What do you mean no? Okay, so this is a GPC X2E made with a solid spruce top.
Yes. 10 questions.
10 questions. Okay. Well, if you're going to get picky about it, is this the one made with a rosewood back and sides?
No.
So this is the one made with a mahogany back and sides.
Yes, the GPC X2E Mahogany.
12 questions. Thank you very much. Well, I must say, you had me going. You almost fooled me. But then and I have to say, you still beat me at this, because the one time I tried to pull a fast one on you and pick the very guitar we've been talking about, you immediately got it in one guess. So,
I have to tell you, I was extremely, extremely close to doing just exactly that, but I did not want to share that spotlight with you, and both of us had an opportunity to have guessed it that quickly, but I almost literally made the GPC X2E Macassar my guess. I was almost ready to do it.
I just didn't, I wouldn't have thought that way. So, but anyway, that was fun. So yes, my streak continues. Well, not my streak exactly, but if we were keeping score, for those who are unfamiliar or have forgotten or just like to hear me rub it in, I have stumped Maury more than he stumped me. But we have definitely stumped each other. But no one's going to top Maury's record of getting it with one guess. That'll never happen.
But you almost could have tied me, and I'm not letting that happen.
Yeah, well, you can always rub that in too.
Nice. I'm going to find that meme that's going around with Mr. Rogers. I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of you, you know that. I hope you do.
I knew you reminded me of someone.
All right, Spoon, fun and games are over. Back to work, and I have to answer my trivia question, but would you like to guess first?
I would. This is almost a mini 20 questions. Is it a junior?
No.
Is it a X series?
It's an X series. Let me repeat the question, too, if anybody's getting here late on YouTube. When you look at the X series, the number 2 in the model name almost always implies a solid spruce top. Can you name an X series guitar from Martin that does have a solid spruce top that does not have a 2 in the name?
Is this the OX1?
No, that is incorrect. The answer is LX1E.
LX, not a junior, an L. Okay.
Why is the X series exempt in this rule? Why are you allowed to have a guitar in the X series with a solid top made of wood that doesn't have a 2 in it. Tell me why.
My guess is it's grandfathered in. Chris Martin was always big on don't change something that isn't broken. And I bet you it was called the LX1 before they came up with this manufacturing idea of 1 means non-wood top and 2 means a wood top. That's my guess. When I said a junior, my brain was thinking the Little Martin, and I said a junior, and I should have said a Little Martin. But yeah, okay.
So being the Martin insider that you are, do you suspect in the near future, in the distant future, in 45 years, that this will eventually be called the LX2E?
It's entirely possible. And like I said, that's just a guess, but I vaguely think that these Little Martins were around before that decision happened. And so that's my guess, that it was grandfathered in. And it was short. Remember when they went through and renamed all of those X series? It was all because Chris didn't like them all having these long alphabet code word names. And so that you'd have to decipher and try to figure out. And so he said, shorten them all up. But that one already had a short name. So that's just totally a guess. But I just know the way their minds work there. And that's my guess. But we can find out.
Next time you're at lunch with Tim Teal and Dick Boak and Chris Martin and Thomas Ripsum and whoever else you want to fakely include in that fantasy lunch meeting.
And I want to start a bar fight. Whose fault is this?
That's next week's trivia question. If you were in a bar fight, who would you want with you? Tim Teal, Thomas Ripsum, Chris Martin, or Dick Boak?
Well, I got to go with Tim, man. He's a biker. He rides a motorcycle, wears a leather jacket. So I'll have to go with Tim Teal.
All right. Later, when I talk to Dick Boak, I will tell you voted against him. But
I gotta say, there couldn't be a more pacifistic guy, a more peaceful human being than Dick Boak. So I think he would be happy that I didn't pick him.
Well, you can tell him that yourself. The LX1E, there isn't much to talk about here except the fact that a lot of people come to Maury's music looking for an affordable guitar and or a travel guitar and or something that's really resistant to humidity and temperature. And for some reason, we're going to put this LX1E in the hidden gem category because whether it's not the newest thing anymore, maybe the shine is off of it, the LX1E is a hidden gem for sure. It's easily missed, at least these days. We're talking very freely in a podcast in 2023. And I bet you we're going to get a lot of phone calls Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all week long about lots of Martins. And I'll almost guarantee this guitar will be forgotten in the just casual conversations. I don't hear a lot about it. It doesn't have a lot of press these days. But if you're looking for something in this price range, and remember, today's topic is Martin guitar hidden gems under $1,000. This guitar is so far under $1,000, you could probably get 2 of them. But if you're looking for something that's not as big as an O or a double O, and you're considering a travel guitar, Spoon just mentioned the juniors are great. We're going to go bigger than the backpacker here for sake of argument. Anything in the LX series is certainly worth your time, but if you want to get something with a pickup, the LX1E would be my recommendation to don't overlook this guitar too quickly.
Well, if you're going to speak freely, and we'll do that, and, everybody knows that, I'm Martin-centric, but I would say when it comes to tone, this sounds better than a Baby Taylor. To my ears, Baby Taylors, you can plug them in. They certainly work. My friend Big Old Trey K, who's one of these mountainous guys, used to play one. I think he just liked the novelty of playing such a tiny guitar when he's such a big guy. But at his old band, Uncle Moon, that was his main axe for a long time. Nowadays, he plays my old 73 D18. But oh, wow. I think these Little Martins are real guitars. And I think they sound like real guitars. Of course, they're really tiny, so they sound like a small, very small guitar. But I think they, to my ears, the Baby Taylors sound more like a novelty toy guitar, frankly. And I think you get a more guitar sound out of a Little Martin. Just my opinion.
Well, you mentioned something a few minutes ago, OX1E, and that was not the answer to my trivia question, but I must admit it is next on my list of hidden gems.
Oh, well, very good, because I like this guitar. I think it looks good. It's an O size. It's, which was Martin's original concert size, and which was in the 1800s, was considered big enough to actually perform a concert. And it's kind of hard to believe by Taylor Swift standards that somebody would expect to go out without amplification and perform a concert with an O-size guitar. But I know people think of triple O's compared to dreadnoughts, and we'll say a triple O is a small guitar. Well, an O is definitely smaller than a double O or a triple O, but they're still real guitars. They still have real bass response. But go ahead, I'm jumping ahead. Go ahead, tell us about the OX1E.
I'll try, but I'm just really, really impressed that you figured out a way to include Travis Kelce's girlfriend in this podcast. We are so up on current events.
Who?
The Martin OX1E. It's a guitar that I don't really think about a lot. When we talk about hidden gems, this gem is so hidden, even I forget to bring it up. And I'm not just trying to be funny. If somebody gets on the phone with me later and we're talking about affordable instruments, this guitar doesn't come to my mind very quickly. And hey, let's keep the talking transparent going. This guitar doesn't really register on my radar all that much. It doesn't necessarily have any specific quality that makes me really gravitate towards it. And whether or not, it is fair to say we saw a lot of standard series, a lot of modern deluxe. Much of our clientele does go for guitars that cost a lot more than the X series do. So it's not often that I, would pull this down to take a look at it for a customer. Shame on me, I don't play it in a lot of videos unless we're doing a theme on X series or a theme on HPL. I decided to talk about this today, and it's so hidden. I don't really have a lot ready to falsely talk about it, brag it up for the sake of sales. It's just a guitar that honestly, even I don't think of all that often. And when people talk to me about triple O versus double O versus O, it's only those real specific use case players who want an O-size guitar because they tell me they want one. Whenever somebody says I want to get a smaller body guitar, my mind goes immediately to a double O and a triple O. And if I'm really being honest, the triple O is more versatile. So I often tell people, if you don't know what you want and you're asking me, should you go double O or triple O? Forget the fact that I almost always suggest triple O if the price is the same. I almost never think to go all the way down to an O. So this guitar, for better or worse, it's not a dig. It's not me being unprepared. I just don't necessarily have a lot to gush about the OX1, really the O size in general. But when I think of an O, I go to an 018 in my mind, and I honestly overlook this guitar myself, and it's just the truth. I could pause this now and script up a quick spiel, but it's just a guitar I don't put a lot of my mind on, and maybe I should.
Well, now that the X series triple O's are short scale, and the double O's have always been short scale, except for occasional models, and the O it's really the matter's body size, but not just that, because the slightly smaller body, everything on the fingerboard, including all the way up, including the headstock, is a little closer to the body as you come down those sizes. So it becomes a comfort thing in addition to the body size thing. Now, the reason I had mentioned, trying to guess a non-2 level X that had solid wood, I went with that because I forget they're not solid wood, because that HPL imagery that they use with the really cool looking wood looks so real that when you see these guitars online, you see them in a shop, and certainly when you see them on stage, they look like wood. They look like really good, cool looking wood for literally a fraction of the price. If this thing was truly made out of solid sapele or some other thing from the it cost $1,000 more. If this was solid wood that looked as good as the wood, it would probably cost a lot more than $1,000 more, because they purposely pick out, whether you're talking whether you're talking about Koa or mahogany sapele, which is a mahogany, Macassar ebony, they are picking wood that would be considered top grade wood to come up with the imagery that ends up on this high pressure laminate. And so it's a really gorgeous looking guitar. So check it out. And again, same thing with the spruce too. The HPL guitars that have an HPL top that's made to look like spruce, it looks like grade 8, D45 level spruce. So, they do a great job. And when I see those guitars, they make me think of the old 17s from the pre-war era with the solid mahogany tops. So interesting choice. I didn't even know you were going to put that on your list. So I guess great minds think alike.
Speaking of great minds think alike, I did tease earlier in the program there might be one more black guitar on the list. And rounding out today's list of hidden gems under $1,000 from Martin Guitar, I do have one more guitar to tell you about. It's the DX Johnny Cash.
Ooh, you can throw in an ooh, there. Do you have one ready?
Ooh.
Wow. So, okay. Well, that's a very cool guitar. You're right. This was, of course, inspired by the old Johnny Cash signature model, which was inspired by the D35 that he had asked Martin to make in all black. And they had to do it without telling Fred Martin. C.F. Martin III was still the chairman of the board at that time, and he refused to ever let them make a black guitar. And they made a black guitar for Johnny Cash and didn't tell him. And he honestly didn't know about it. He didn't even know about it until he saw Johnny Cash playing it on TV. And then decided he was okay with it. But then they made a signature model out of it back when Dick was doing those artist signature models. And then they made this one for people who could never afford those kind of models. And, after the signature model, they made a production model, but it was still up there priced, even more than a D35. And so this gives people an opportunity to play a guitar similar to the one played by the Man in Black, but it is in the X series, extremely affordable, and just has the word in block letters "Cash" down on the fingerboard.
True, and really, even if you're not a Johnny Cash fan, this is a great way to get what would be called a DX1E in black. So don't think you have to be totally into that music or one of those guys that sees something on the fretboard and is afraid of owning a guitar that has someone else's name on it. If you love the thought of an X series instrument with HPL backsides and top, and you simply like this color, I think that's one of the reasons this is one of the more popular guitars at Martin. It is a hidden gem here at Maury's, but I do have it on good authority. This sells very well out the door at Martin. So as far as we track our sales from end users who buy it from us, Martin tracks their sales from the dealer network. There's nothing hidden about this as far as what Martin's doing and how many dealers go looking for it. So again, between this and the OMC X1E Black, that's it. Unless you want to step up to the D35 Johnny Cash in the standard series and you love fingerprints with something like that, it better or worse, if you want a black instrument and you don't want to cut away OM, you have to get this one. So it's one of those things that doesn't just pay tribute to a very deserving artist, but it really does fill a hole in the Martin lineup. And whether or not it's a little bit overlooked here, the message of today's program is don't overlook these hidden gems anymore. If we succeeded at all this last hour, we tried to use the opportunity to bring something in front of your eyes, in front of your ears, and to remind you these guitars don't deserve to be hidden or forgotten or passed over. And if you are one of those guys that just loves researching instruments, even if you're not shopping, guys or gals, consider finding these instruments at maurysmusic.com. We have most of them in stock. And of course, you'll find all the specs on the specs tab. You'll find actual pictures on the images tab if we do have these in stock. And if we did anything justice today, we gave a little bit of screen time to some guitars that really are forgotten but shouldn't be. And dare I ask you, Spoon, before we wrap this whole thing up, is there a clear favorite for you on this list?
I'll have to say no, because I'd have to really think through the list again. I want to take the time just to give a shout out to the HPL tops, because I lived with a fella for a long time who, I guess he got married after he moved out from me, but he had a DX and with an HBL top, and learned to play guitar on it. In fact, and he didn't know anything about Martin guitars. He just went into a guitar shop when he got over here. He's actually from England, a Nigerian fellow, but he grew up was born and raised in the UK, and he just went into a guitar shop and got people playing the guitars for him. And the one that he liked the best in his price range was that Martin. And I enjoyed that sound very much. And, to be fair, unlike solid wood guitars, they don't all sound unique. Like, no matter how the quality of Martins are, as you play them and you play them in solid wood tops and backs and sides, the guitar is going to season, and the more it's going to be affected by your style of playing as the years go on. The HBL guitars are not going to do that. It's going to sound the same on day one as it sounds on day 10,000 basically, but it's a really nice sound. And if you guys are, for people who would never even dream of buying a Martin without a solid top, you should check out Maury's videos or the videos that I appear on playing these X Series guitars, because they have a very pretty musical tone. And you'll see why people are happy to buy them, like this cash model. And so I would have to say all of these are worthy guitars to check out, especially for what they cost you to own one of them.
Well, that brings another question up that isn't a trivia question. So before you answer yours, I have to ask, do you have to play guitar to be your roommate? Is that part of the lease agreement?
No, it isn't, but I've certainly had multiple guitarists living with me at one time or another. I had a woman who was a longtime teacher, Berkeley grad, but she's now a head of corporate giving at Berkeley in Boston at her alma mater. And that's a very good question. But yes, I've had multiple guitarists in my household at one time or another, but not currently. So just so you know.
Well, as they say in the movie Airplane, that's not important right now. You owe us a trivia question answer.
Oh, yes. I wonder who, I was assuming people might be able to hear background noises. If you haven't already figured out, I'm not using my Neumann mic setup today. I'm actually on the road, and I'm actually using a headset, and I'm not in my own environs. And so the room I'm in actually has a mantle clock that chimes at the quarter hour and gives away the hour. So I don't know if anybody heard or not. The clock chimed 11 during our broadcast, and so we were broadcasting at 11 o'clock in the morning in my time zone. So I wonder if anybody heard that and guessed the right answer.
Congratulations. If you did, you are way too attached to this podcast. That shouldn't matter to anybody but Spoon. But we do hope you found some value here. Spoon, I want to tell you, I'm always thanking them, but I want to thank you too. Everybody listening and the other person on the microphone. This is so much fun for me. It's a lot of work, and sometimes we have to move heaven and earth to find the actual 2-hour space to get this done, but I am so glad we do. And I want to thank all of you guys out there as well. If you have found value or entertainment, or maybe even both, please consider giving us a review on Apple Podcasts. It would help the show so much. We might even read your review on the air. F. Williams writes, "You guys are bringing rich history to the public. Thank you." Well, thank you, Mr. Williams, for that comment. Those of you out there who are on the fence about giving us a review, I dare you to write one better.
Hear, hear. Yes, again, thanks to everybody for all your support, your mail. I always enjoy reading the mail that I receive at onemans.com, and also the stuff that gets passed on to me by Maury from the podcast listeners. So we will certainly look forward to your comments on the YouTube version of this podcast or through mail for those who listen on the other podcast platforms.
From all of us at Maury's Music, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.
This has been a presentation of Maury's Music, your trusted source for Martin and Blueridge guitars. Find us online at maurysmusic.com.